Spreaker.
I'm Chris from Nerd Alert News, a proud member of the GonnaGeek network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual host. Check out all the other great podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're passionate.
Did you know Magic Mike XXL is actually on the top 25 list of this year's best movie?
They're witty.
He loves some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes they leave you wondering, what the f***?
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, bring back Slave Feral.
Welcome to the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 135 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. My name is Steven John Drew, and with me today is a condensed crew. We've got Stargate Pioneer.
My friends call me SP.
I don't call him SP. We also have Chris Farrell.
For those of you keeping track at home, I just won the bet that the intro wouldn't work right.
By the way, that was pre-broadcast, so they have no idea what you're talking about, and I will vouch for SP that he won the bet. Good job, SP.
Woohoo! No
What are you talking
technical
about? I recorded
difficulties
it.
necessary.
I have a recorder right here.
And the real fun part about it is right now the post listener is like, what the hell are they talking about? Because I edited out all the part where the logo didn't play right. So there you go. Except for this whole conversation, which completely ruins the fact that I edited that. But oh well.
Well, you could edit all of this out and we could just start the intro again from scratch.
Too much work. If you are not aware, we usually have the one and only French-Canadian sensation, JS. However, he cannot be here tonight. He is ill, and we do wish him the best.
Illin like a villain, man.
Shh, I gave him a tour of NASA.
He's just in shock right now. He's just...
No, we've got him locked up in a closet somewhere in there. That's really what's going on. But nobody knows because it's NASA, and we don't talk about secret organizations on this podcast.
I figured you just injected him with the memory wiping drugs, and
Exactly.
he's undergoing his memory wipe as we speak.
That's what I would have assumed.
I don't want to talk about retconning drugs. I want to talk about the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
All right, well, let's talk about that indeed. If you're not familiar with us, we do broadcast this show live every Monday at 5:45 p.m. Pacific-ish, 8:45 p.m. Eastern. You can find us at geeks.live. That is a website, www.geeks.live. And we would love it if you come by because then you can participate in the chat. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see the chat right down there. We put it at the bottom of the video so that you can see what was happening each week. And we do encourage you to come by when we do record. Speaking of the GonnaGeek.com website and all of the amazing things happening, I want to remind everybody that we are part of the GonnaGeek network, which includes a lot of really, really good individuals. Many of those individuals which will be going to a special event at a convention called C2E2. This happens which day, SP?
March 18th, 2016, 2:45 p.m. in room S503. Come join us. We will be talking about injecting podcasting into your everyday life and all the tips and tricks we can give you to be a hobby podcaster today in 2016. Right, Chris?
That's right. There's going to be a whole gang of folks there from the GonnaGeek network, including myself and SP, Naki from ATGN and Willie from ATGN, Cody Goff from Game Life Balance US.
No, Cody Goff.
Okay. And finally, USDA Prime Choice Beef from Legends Podcast will be at this panel as well.
I wish I could be there. You guys are going to do, I know you're going to do a phenomenal job. It's going to be exciting. If you are going to the convention, it's just a little bit out of your convention going as far as your time out of the whole weekend. So I encourage you to go. It's going to be a ton of fun.
we've taken a look at what we're stacked against on the schedule, and I think we're all good, aren't we, Chris?
Other than that Super Smash Bros. Tournament, that can hurt a little bit.
That's actually like midway through our panel, so you can come start the panel with us, and then the secret is we're just going to keep you. But you might think that you're going to leave, but we're going to lock the doors. We're going to lock them. We're going to change them. Chain them up. Who cares about the fire code? You're just going to stay in there. But no. At the start, I gave it away, didn't I? Well, we're going to let you leave so you can come in and then go to the other panels later. But really, there's nothing else going on at that time frame. Friday afternoon, 2:45. Come join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We might even have something to give you.
Don't worry. It is definitely not swag.
Not swag at all. Nope.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and move into our news. Let's do that, okay?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm really excited about the news this week. Woohoo!
All righty. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and start it off today with the resident rocket scientist. He has been following a certain project for quite a while, and this project never seems to fail us, or maybe it always seems to fail us. Go ahead, SB.
Well, what Steven's referring to, and by the time this podcast goes out, I don't know if it will have been launched or not, but we've been following the Falcon 9 launch attempt right now. And one of the reasons why is because SpaceX is actually streaming this live, which is important because they are going to show live for the first time the capability of the Falcon 9 to try to land the first stage back at Kennedy Space Center. So this is a monumental sort of thing. They're actually going to let us in and show it to us if they can ever get the thing off the pad. So let's talk about some of the failures, get that out of the way. So we're talking about the SES-9 Falcon 9 mission. That's the mission number, SES-9 of the Falcon 9. And they're set to launch a satellite into orbit. You know, that's what they do. Got to make the money. You know, you got to bring a payload up. You can't just launch an empty rocket into space. No, can't do that. So they're trying to do this, and they've had scrubs. They've had scrubs for weather. They've had scrubs for this, that, the other thing. Last night, which is Sunday night, the night before we podcast this, I was busy all weekend. I come home and I see a note on my phone, on my Twitter, we're T-minus 5 minutes to launch. I'm like, woohoo, I didn't miss it. So that's really why I haven't been promoting this on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I didn't know if I was going to be around for it. I was busy with family stuff all day. So I get home, I see that, and I immediately pop it on, and I see a countdown hold at T-minus, I believe it was 1 minute, 33 seconds. Now, why was that? Had nothing to do with the rocket itself. Not a thing. A boat, which has been undisclosed, what kind of boat, how big of a boat, how fast the boat was moving, if it was intentional or not intentional, but there was a boat that got into the recovery area. Now, what does that mean? That means if something happens to the rocket, if something falls off the rocket or whatever, they want to clear a path so that it doesn't actually fall on anybody and ruin property or hurt some people. So they had to wait for this boat to leave. Okay, this is a problem various different ways. First of all, you have to think about the orbital space that this is going up into. So the orbits are constantly moving. So if you miss your launch time, you might not make it into that little safe orbital piece as it rotates around the Earth. So that's one thing. Another thing, though, is that the fuel on board the thing tends to be like frozen liquidy stuff, right? And if it just sits for too long, it starts to boil off. And that's exactly what happened. There was a helium bubble that started to form inside the tank, and it caused a low thrust alarm, meaning that when the rocket first fired up, the onboard computer aborted because it did not have enough thrust. Now, this would be bad because it might just pop up off the pad 10 feet and come back down and have rocket fuel explode everywhere. So it's very bad. So it was a good thing for it to abort at that point in time. But since they missed the last chance to go, and because it was then a mechanical problem, they had to purge all the systems. They had to defuel the tanks because it's volatile when it's sitting there. And the next time that they have scheduled a launch, it would no earlier than be tomorrow, but that's if all the safety stuff checks out. And I have no idea how long that's really going to take, but eventually they're going to launch this puppy. It's just a matter of when. So I don't know if it's going to be before this podcast goes out or afterwards. If you're watching live, just stay tuned to the SpaceX feeds, the Twitter feed, SpaceX.com, whatever. They are going to stream this live on their webpage via, I believe it's YouTube Live that they're streaming it. And so I want to see this. And this, guys, maybe I'm the old one here. Did you guys ever remember watching the Space Shuttle live when it was launching or coming back to Earth? Either you two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've watched a few Space Shuttle launches before.
Yeah, you know, I'll be honest. It wasn't as big up in Canada, but yeah, I think there was one that I saw.
I am old enough to remember the back end of the Apollo program as well. So the Skylab and some of the later Apollo launches. I don't remember the moon launch, but I do remember the later the Apollo 11 moon launch. But I do remember the later launches, and I remember all the space shuttle launches and that sort of thing. It's just exciting to me. I've actually been to 2 space shuttle launches down on the Florida coast, and they've been spectacular, both of them. It's amazing. If you live in Florida, if you're visiting in Florida or whatever, and you go to the Cape and you're there around a launch, it reverberates in your chest. It's like, whoa, the power that these things give off is great. So I just love to watch these things go off, and hopefully it'll all work out and we'll get to see a safe landing. But I just want to applaud SpaceX for opening the door finally to live. And this is a big step in the excitement of the space program again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was really neat. I was watching it last night as well. The only thing was, I really hope that they don't, and this is going to sound horrible, but I really hope they don't enforce any copyrights, because the host that they had was terrible, and nothing against him. It just clearly isn't his forte. And I think that it's something that, honestly, somebody like yourself, if you could pick up the feed and do like a live cast along with it, I think it would be incredible. It would be a new generation for these live streams. And I think podcasting and live streaming in general gives us that ability for fans and like yourself to actually have a fairly riveting show of a launch.
That's true. And what we're talking about is rebroadcasting a broadcast that's coming in. It's not like we're news companies, right? We're not. We would simply be picking up a stream from somewhere else, and we'd be displaying it and projecting it out with our commentary. Now, there's all sorts of legal things. You know, if they give it the go ahead, people can go ahead and do that. But if they don't, if they want to control it, all the commentary on their own stuff, then they can't, at this point in time on the internet, they can do that. Now, I say all this, let's get back to that guy. He was chosen for a reason.
Oh, okay.
He was chosen to display a calm, cool, collective mentality. No matter what happened, he was there just to be the steady voice. He wasn't there to be spectacular either way. He was just there to say, these are the facts. So SpaceX chose him for a reason. They could have chosen anybody. They could have hired an actor to do that. They could have brought in actual news crews to do that and gave him an exclusive. They decided not to. They decided to go with just one guy with his computer listening to the NASA control and reporting on us. And make no mistake about it, the stuff that he said was probably, now I don't have any proof, but was probably proved by the company CEO himself, which is the same CEO for Tesla, same CEO for PayPal. You know, it's Elon Musk. He probably had a big hand in it.
The modern day Tony Stark.
He is Tony Stark. Yeah.
Now, Chris, I know that you had better things to do, like Nerd Alert News last night, but did you watch any of it?
I watched it leading up, literally like 2 minutes before we started broadcasting Nerd Alert News last night. I was watching that, and while we were doing Nerd Alert News, I actually broke the broadcast up occasionally as SP was giving us updates as to what was going on with the Falcon 9. So at one point, we were in between talking about things, and I was like, hey, let's put a pin in it for a second. SP's got an update on the show, on the Falcon 9, and they've had to delay the launch, and here's why. And it was kind of fun in that regard to feel like I'm breaking news to the people. It was fun.
Yeah, I didn't join the blab until the launch was over. Sorry. My bad.
Way to support your network, Mr. President.
You didn't have a rocket. If you had a rocket, I would have watched your show.
I hid the rocket. I'm saving that for episode 50.
Fair. Okay, fair.
I got a rocket right back there, and I'm not kidding. It's right back there. I'll bring it out next time.
Yeah, it's just a model rocket I've got, but hey, it's a rocket nonetheless.
Oh, no, I've got a real one.
I got a rocket in my pants. Ah! I had to do it.
All right, SP, you're going to have to do the rest of the show with him. I can't handle this anymore.
I know. This is bad. Oh, man, Steven.
I know.
Yeah, you caused him to walk off set. There's only 3 of us. So now there's only 2. You better apologize. You better say you're sorry, sir.
Yeah. I'll just cut to myself and talk about my news. So this week for my news point, I am going to be talking about things that bump in the night, specifically out of the Apple headquarters. That's right. There has been rumors and words coming from the residents of Sunnyvale, California, who are near an Apple complex, and they've been reporting that something weird is going on at the Apple complex at night. They're talking about this complex, which of course has huge metal fences and big high security and all this other stuff. And they say that they're hearing bangs and thumps and beeping, sort of like how it sounds when a truck's backing up, all at very, very weird hours. They also say that there's metal noises, and this comes on the heels of people who have been talking about in the same area hearing possibly car sounds at night. So, you know, you can speculate, you can do whatever you want, but a lot of people are speculating maybe this is the pilot, the building of the pilot of the Apple car.
Did you say Sunnyvale or Sunnydale? Because if it's Sunnydale, it was vampires and monsters.
We can go with that. I think it's Sunnyvale, but that sounds more fun.
No, in all seriousness, it's probably the oft-rumored Apple car that people have been speculating about, which sparked a bunch of speculation. Apple's going to buy Tesla and all this other stuff. Google's in the business. Apple wants to do a lot of the same things as Google. It just seems strange because it's kind of outside the kind of work they do. I'm sure the hardware is going to be beautiful, but the software is going to suck when the car launches.
The thing that'll be great if they launch a car is, you know, you'll be able to use it for like 3 years and then not be able to get any of the updates. So it'll be like, sorry, we discovered there was a bug where your car crashes itself into a wall, but you're 3 generations old. You can't get it.
Well, I mean, I don't think they're looking at a self-driving car would be my guess for Apple. My guess is, well, and I could be wrong. And if I am, hate mail can go to chris@GonnaGeek.com. I think they're more trying to make a high-end luxury electric car kind of encroach on Tesla's market is the theory I have, at least.
There are some great cars that are either full electric or hybrids out there. If you're a fan of Top Gear, the BBC show, it's kind of in hiatus as they're transitioning hosts because of reasons. We'll leave that one alone for now. But there are some really big, high-performance vehicles out there, and Tesla has one of its own, and I want one. I'll admit it. I want a high-performance electric car. The only problem that I've seen with electric cars to date is the range, and Tesla actually is getting pretty good range out of their cars right now.
Well, and Tesla's also got their plan for the charger super network and things like that. And now if the rumors come true that the new Tesla ends up being $35,000 US off the lot with $10,000 of tax incentives in there, it becomes very hard for someone who has a short commute to not be like, maybe this Tesla thing's the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I think Suncast brings up an excellent point, though, in the chat that this is a secret NASCAR. It is a SNASCAR. I
could see that. Well, the only problem with NASCAR is it has to be a production, like the shape of it, right? Because that's the only... I can't remember. There's like 3 things out of the original car that make it onto a NASCAR, and the shape is one thing, and maybe the pedal or something. I don't know. Anyway... It has to be a production car, and Apple hasn't produced anything yet, so they can't do it. And then Tesla doesn't qualify either, because they don't qualify as a production line car yet.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Interesting.
So before we move off the topic, does anyone really think an Apple car is a good idea? Am I just being a hater when I'm like, I don't know about this?
I think anything to challenge the big auto industries into going into alternative energy propulsion, I think that's a good thing. Now, whether or not Apple actually makes it through or not, I don't know. Take a look at the Tucker. Take a look at all the innovations Tucker brought to the industry that weren't adapted until decades later. And Tucker had it from the beginning.
See, I have a bit of a different viewpoint on it. Like, you guys in the States, and I say you guys because really they are American manufacturers, almost lost your entire auto industry if there wasn't for bailouts and other things like that. Like, I think that there needs to be a better approach than possibly splitting that market even more. Like, I think that if we add another manufacturer in there, yes, it encourages the other guys to pull up the socks, but it also puts us likely towards the direction of financial ruins again for some of these people. So I don't know. It was such a big thing. You know, somehow the manufacturers got out of it, beyond me how they did, but they're really just on the recovery end of it. And I also, to get back to your question, Chris, I would rather see Apple focus on working with manufacturers to put their software integrated into the manufacturers' touchscreens and things like that. Just because I do think that I think that they've got a huge market that they definitely should have better integration in there. I know it's coming, but I think there's a lot more that can be done, and I'd rather just see them not actually enter the car market.
So to step back a second, the fact that there's these smaller, more technically savvy companies that are coming out has actually lit a fire into the butts of big motors, big car companies in general. If you go and look, a lot of the enhancements and improvements you've started to see in Tesla and rumored improvements you've seen come out of like car shows and stuff like that, you're starting to see get folded into these conventional vehicles. You've started to see GM start putting out electric cars with extended ranges because they've seen the success and the interest that Tesla has garnered. So what they've actually done is sparked a fire of innovation in the automotive industry, actually. And it's been very interesting to see and to see how things develop. What could actually stunt that a little bit now is the fact that right now, gas prices have dropped low again in the United States again, and the rumor is they're going to stay low for a while. So people are less being like, oh, I need an electric car, because they're buying their gas for $1.60 a gallon in a lot of places.
Fair point.
The moment I buy my next vehicle, which will be a big V8 4x4 pickup truck, 6-pack, that's what I'm going for. The moment I do, gas will immediately become $4 or $5 a gallon. That is exactly what's going to happen.
I can see that. I can totally see that. So everybody keep an eye on what SP is doing, and, you know, buy your gas in huge amounts before he buys his truck. So there you go.
Well, Suncast brings up a good point before we move off this one. He goes, Apple has more money than they know what to do with, and car tech is generally old. So that's probably part of the reason. And it's the same thing you see with Google. Google gets into stuff that just sounds cool to do. So we've seen the stuff about self-driving cars that Google's been doing and things like that. These guys, they got tons of money. They can afford to experiment. That's for sure.
That's true.
Have you guys watched the country change around you? Have you watched these windmills pop up over the last 10 years? Have you watched all these solar farms go in? Have you been paying attention? The oil industry is slowly being eroded away. And
it's true.
Yeah,
fossil fuels in general. I live in West Virginia. It's big coal country. Coal is not nearly as money making as it used to be, and you can see it in the local economies around here, as a lot of coal workers are getting laid off because they're too efficient at their jobs. So then there's a surplus, and like, well, we don't need any more coal for a little bit. We're going to fire you all and stuff like that. It's from Chris, a local economic standpoint, it's rough.
As you fly in for C2E2, if you come in from the south, about 20 miles or so south of Chicago, on I-65 as you're going up from Indianapolis, but it's closer to Chicago. Just take a look down.
Oh, I know. When I drove to C2E2 back in 2012 or 2011, I can't remember what year, we drove right through all of that, and you just drive through miles of windmills.
And they're only getting bigger. They've only put more in. They put a new one in can't remember how long it is. It's every few days. Like every week, there's 2 or 3 that goes in there. You see them going down the road all the time.
let me tie this back up into a Tesla comment. Remember, Elon Musk's behind all of these battery plans and stuff like that to put batteries on houses, and has let loose the patents on a bunch of his battery technology to ensure that other people can make these things, make them affordable and things like that. It's all part of these alternative energy plans. You're seeing Tesla be one of the leaders in that.
Which is cool.
Very much.
One of my favorite History Channel shows is America, the History of Us. And then there's another series that's called The Men Who Made America or something like that. Elon Musk is just like Rockefeller. He's like Carnegie. He's like all these robber barons of old, except for he's shaping the country for of course he's making money. He's making tons of money, but he's shaping the country for years and years, and maybe for the next century to come. It is awesome. Elon Musk is definitely somebody that's shaping our future.
Yeah, and I guess backing up to your question before we do finally hop off of this here, I think I get more irritated, like, clarifying my point further, I think I get more irritated when people like Apple come into it, because I don't get the feeling that Apple is trying to make the world better as opposed to Elon Musk, where it's just so clear that he is. And that's why I have no problem. Like, look at his diverse portfolio. And I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am just tainted because it's Apple, Chris. I think
Elon Musk's just a mad scientist, man. He comes up and funds all these crazy cool initiatives. He's like what we would have been as kids if we got a bunch of money. It was like, try and build something now. I'm insanely jealous.
Right. So, okay, Apple's obviously, they got, as Suncast said, they've got a ton of money they don't know what to do with. If they make some advancements that are either good for them and they stick, or are put into the industry in general, I'm all for it. Let's just see where it pans out. I don't care if they succeed or not. I'm not an Apple employee.
Right.
You're not the boss of me, Apple.
For all we know, what this could be is they could just be testing new versions of CarPlay in cars and be doing random test courses to do user interaction. And be like, how hard is it for me to be able to change my input when I'm driving this car on the track? And like, oh crap, that button's not big enough. He just wrecked his car because he couldn't hit the next track button easily. I mean, it could be something as simple and as innocuous as that, versus Apple's trying to build the Apple car that's going to be powered by a Tesla engine and drive itself from point A to point B with no problems.
I can't hear my iPhone 7 with the speakers if I'm going 120 miles an hour.
It's the iPhone 7 testing ground. We're going to put them in cars.
I like it. Well, moving from one phone manufacturer to another, Chris, what is going on with HTC?
HTC. So I was really hoping JS would be here because he's our resident PC gamer that we have on this show that can offer some great perspectives. But at Mobile World Congress last week, HTC gave out a lot more details about their virtual reality system called the Vive. First of all, the fact that you can pre-order it starting today on February 29th. Pre-orders started for $800, and you'll be able to pick yours up sometime in early April. What's that $800 going to get you? You get the VR headset, 2 wireless controllers, 2 wall units used for tracking your position in the room, a hub that collects all that data and sends it to your PC, and 2 games. So here's where it gets interesting. I talked a little bit about virtual reality with some folks last night on another show. It's intriguing tech to me, and this is the newest one that was announced. And what is really cool about the Vive, different from like Oculus Rift and the Galaxy Gear and obviously Google Cardboard, is the Vive is set up so that you can actually walk around your environment, and that translates to actions in your virtual reality world. So that's why they have those 2 wall units used for tracking where you move around. And one of the coolest things it has in it is when you start to get close to one of those boundaries, like a wall or something, you've got these goggles on. You can't see a darn thing. There's actually a camera on the front. And when you get close to that, the camera turns on and your VR world is overlaid with what's in front of you so you don't run into it. Pretty cool tech. And this is from HTC, who makes cell phones. I would love to know, JS specifically, I would love to know if this is something he's interested into, because we know he plays a lot of games. He loves this cutting edge technology. I'll probably mention it to him again next week just to hear what he thinks. But how about you guys? What do you guys think about this VR craze? Is it something you're interested in?
I honestly need to learn more about it, and maybe I need to watch some videos or some news stories or whatever, but this is very intriguing. Of course, this sort of panacea in virtual reality goes back in sci-fi for decades on the big screen. All the way back to what was it? It wasn't Dreamscape. It was Brainstorm.
Lawnmower Man. Okay.
Yeah, Brainstorm. And I've been wanting this sort of technology for a very long time. Not just how it looks around you and the holodeck technology for TNG, but to go into the holodeck technology of how does it feel? Can I actually run in place and that sort of thing? So I just, it's very exciting where this is going. And I'm very jealous of my grandkids of what kind of world that they are going to be able to live in. Yeah, this is going to be great.
And it was also really cool today. Microsoft announced all the information on their dev kits and the prices for their dev kits for HoloLens, which while it is not virtual reality, is augmented reality. So it's like they showed an example of playing Minecraft, and when you have these goggles on, it projects your Minecraft world on the table in front of you. So you can see the world around you, interact with it, and play your game over top of it. And another scenario they'd walked through is, say you're having a plumbing issue, you can call up the plumber on Skype. They can see what you're seeing, and you see them in like a corner of your lenses, and they show you what to do. Stuff like that. HoloLens is super intriguing technology. The dev kit is $3,000 though, so I don't think you're going to see a ton of developers jumping on with that.
Well, take a look at the Apple's Lisa, the precursor to the Mac. That was I'm not kidding. It was $20,000. And that was, oh my gosh, I'm dating myself. That was 40 years ago when $20,000 was more like $150,000 is today. And I don't know the exact conversion, but I'm just equating what I remember to what is now. And things are expensive, but then they roll in if they have application, and then you get to get stuff that's actually affordable. In jest, I was holding up my iPhone. It doesn't matter if it's an iPhone or an Android phone or Windows phone or whatever, but the technology that's available in these smartphones was just inconceivable when we were kids. Hey, take a look again at the next generation and all the futuristic gadgets that they had and how wrong they were just in the fact that it's better than they could ever have projected back then. So hey, $3,000 today, 2 years could be $200.
So you mentioned something interesting talking about the cell phones. Actually, some of the VR technology you've seen out there, the cheaper stuff, which is not cheap as in necessarily, oh, this is terrible and chintzy, but more price-wise, you've seen things like Google Cardboard come out, which is literally free, or if you can build your own, or you can buy kits from them for like $3 or something like that. That is literally a cardboard kit you fold up with some plastic lenses that hold your cell phone in front of your face like this, and then you have virtual reality as you walk around. There's also the Samsung Gear VR, I think is what it's called, where you clip in a Samsung phone and it is basically a VR machine you strap to your head with a Bluetooth controller. You can play video games and move around and do things. That's $99. I mean, those are the cheap things. Then you start working your way up. PlayStation's going to have their own. Nobody knows the price on yet. Oculus Rift, owned by Facebook, I think is $600. The HTC Vive for $800. We're on the edge of potentially what is the next new cool big thing. And from a technology standpoint, it's really cool to me, but I kind of feel like that fuddy-duddy where I'm like, you know what? It's not for me, I don't think. But that being said, I've only gotten to try like the Gear VR for 10 minutes.
Here's the
thing,
I haven't really
been in depth with it.
And we'll touch on it more in a minute, I suspect. But you also have said similar things about Apple Wear and watches, and I know you have a slightly different opinion on that now. So maybe we'll tease that because I think you're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Yeah. So before we do that, though, you got one more thing, SP?
Yeah, one last thing about this virtual reality stuff, and again, I'm dating myself, but I'm guessing neither of you two ever did any pilot training whatsoever. I am of the generation that my original simulator time came in a simulator with a camera that was looking over at that they displayed in front of the windows in front of you, that they displayed over little models, and the camera would actually run over a simulated or real map of whatever, and that was it. Now today you run into a 777 simulator, or I'm guessing an F-35 simulator or whatever. You take a look at what's capable there. It's in this big hijack thing that's simulating motion, as well as, of course, the screens are 4K screens, so it's just like real. It's just like a real thing now, and yeah, this virtual reality or augmented reality stuff is just going to go the same way. And it's just an example of something that's already happened and where it is today, albeit in the millions of dollars. You just scale it down and you can do it at home. It's so fun. It's going to be great.
That's awesome.
What you're going to have to do to sell people on this VR and augmented reality is you have to have demo units out there. You have to give people opportunities to try this, because the barrier to entry being the price of a console machine plus then some more, or a high-powered PC, because you can't be using a chump-powered PC to do this VR stuff. You've got a pretty decent barrier to entry. So the best way to bring people in, send it on the convention circuit, have it where people can try it, have demo units at Best Buy. You convert people by giving them a chance to see it for themselves.
Yeah, but there's more than that though, right? Like if you look at the Wii example, the original Wii, they were massively short inventory for the hype, but they had enough that it got enough and it was affordable enough that it got in people's hands, and then they were playing with their friends and everybody had to have one. And then it paid off because next thing you know, radio stations and TV stations and all these things are giving them away because they're such a hyped product. But it was that initial get it in people's hands, and they did, and people fell in love because they started to play. So you're right, you got to get it in everybody's hands.
The big reason the Wii worked is because A, it was so different, and B, because it was different, the people that took a chance on it went, okay, this is kind of cool, which had a lower barrier to entry than any of the other consoles also, then were the evangelists for it, and they started telling everyone, oh my god, this Wii is so cool, come play Wii Sports at my house, and that's how it spread. You have to get that solid install base, and those people are the guys that are going to be the evangelists for your product and go out and be like, you have to try this is so cool, and hope it grows from there. And let's be honest, with Facebook behind one of these things, they've got billions upon billions of dollars. I'm not going to be shocked to see the Oculus Rift be everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm dating myself again, but that's how it was with the Atari 2600. Every store had one, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, whatever, and you got to play with it. You had the little joystick and you were like, great. And of course it wasn't sanitary or anything, and they probably broke left, right, and backwards. But that is exactly what got everybody excited about that as well. And now I am going to take a note to research something, because I think this is exactly what the Google Doomsday barges were for, is to demo products like Google Glass. And they determined that it just wasn't going to be economically feasible. So they started tearing them apart, because that you go back to the store sort of the way it was done in the past. And I think they determined that that was probably a cheaper and a better way to do it, because the Google barges were just on the coast. What are you going to do? Float one up the Mississippi? Okay, so that's 3 parts of the United States, but that's not the entire. Not like Haley can get it out in Kansas or Montana or whatever.
Let's float one of those into Phoenix. Why don't we?
Exactly. So yeah, I'm going to take a note and research into if Google has ever let out why they got rid of those.
A lot of rumors was Google Glass and things like that, like you said. But before I get accused of being too positive on the VR thing, remember they tried to do the exact same thing in the mid-90s with Nintendo's Virtual Boy. And it was a hard sell. And if you remember, Virtual Boy kind of flopped. Now, that's not to say they're the same thing at all. I'm just saying it was another instance of VR we saw out there. And as someone who played it a bunch of times, because my buddies had one, they were not quite able to convert me. The closest they came was when they were closing them out at Toys R Us. And it was like, you can buy this Virtual Boy with like all of the games that came out for it for $100. And I was like, maybe I kind of want this. And I was like, nah, I'd get bored with it soon.
Well, I think that is going to take us towards the end of the news, but before we do that, I want to bring up a point that I meant to talk to SP before about, but I just remembered, and I don't want to derail Chris's segment too much. So SP, let's put it in here. I know you had a question that you kept meaning to ask the one and only Neil that you kept forgetting about, to do with comics. What was your question there, SP?
Neil. So I'm asking our financial desk editor or anchor, or I'm not sure what to call him, because that really wasn't even a news desk to begin with. That was somebody's sewing room. Anyway, so Neil, I want to know how much comics used to cost. So I want the historical cost of comics in Canada and the history behind that and the financial stuff. So if you could put that together and then bring back another Neil's financial segment, that would be great. And oh, by the way, can you make it a lot less confusing? Because I've listened to your previous one about 3 or 4 times, and I'm still not sure who owns Tim Hortons. No idea.
Well, guess what? I may have jumped the gun here a little bit, and I might have something prepared for you. Let's find out. Let's find out.
Stephen, greetings from the GonnaGeek Financial News Nerve Center. That's what we call it, actually. So last week on your cast, one of your co-hosts, one SP, had a question about the historical pricing of comics in Canada versus the US that was brought to light by recent changes in the Canadian dollar, the price of oil, and other macroeconomic factors. Well, I'm here to tell you, SP, that there has been no historical difference in Canadian and US cover pricing. That's right. Now, here's where it gets complicated. So try and stay with me, rocket scientist. Historically, hardcover books and softcover books have been priced differently on different sides of the 49th parallel. If you take a look on the back of the comics, or a graphic novel, I should say, you will see two prices. One, which you probably always ignore. That's the Canadian price, about $10 more expensive than what you pay down there in Trumpland. Now, on comic books, there has always been one price on the cover. So right now we're looking at $2.99, $3.99, or $4.99. $4.99 US is approximately $7.75, closer to $8 Canadian these days. Now, historically, as prices have gone up in the US, we've been faced with the same prices up here in Canada. The difference is the massive disparity in the Canadian prices. So what we have now is differential pricing based on retailers in Canada. If you go to your local comic book store, they actually have a conversion guide at the front counter. So for example, a $2.99 comic might have an extra $1 added onto it. $3.99 might have $1.25, and a $4.99 comic might have $1.75 or $1.50 added onto it. Now, you're actually still probably getting a deal versus what you get on Comixology, which can adjust the digital exchange rate for the price that you see every day. Take the $2.99 example for a moment, what you're going to see with all the upcoming DC books in a second. Again, remember, they're moving all the DC books back to $2.99, which, if you were to take a look at the exchange rate today, would be about $4.07 Canadian. Now, at my local comic book store, they tack on $1. So you're paying $3.99 for the hard copy. A bit of arbitrage. So that's a bit of a history of pricing and the macroeconomic forces impacting the Canadian US dollar exchange rate differences for your local comic book hobbies. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you so much for that deal. I loved it. I loved it.
All I got from that is I have to cross the 49th parallel, and all of a sudden I'm a millionaire. That's all I got from that.
Your $7.50 will make you a millionaire.
Exactly.
But did it make more sense to you this time, SP, for your rocket scientist brain?
Yeah, I don't know. The whole economics thing, money, it's rocket science for technology. We could care less about money and stuff. And that's why we all retire poor and become podcasters. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But you only say this stuff because Neil isn't here to defend himself.
Yeah, well, if you have to call your sewing room a nerve center, I see.
The financial nerve center of the GonnaGeek network. Happens to be in a basement, but yes, it's still a financial nerve center.
This is fantastic.
By the way, audio listener, you can't see this, but I did indeed connect Neil live tonight to give us the report. So, Neil, thank you very much for coming on here and the information, as always. You're welcome to stick around the rest of the show if you want.
It's dinner here in the nerve center, Stephen, so I'll sign out for this evening.
All right. Well, one day we hope that you will finally give us the concrete resolution on Tim Hortons. We do hope for that.
It's complicated. Good night, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Neil.
Good night, Neil.
Thanks, Neil. That was awesome.
So, I'm sitting here, I'm going, if this is pre-recorded, why does he have his earbuds in his ears?
I was thinking I would have done another take, but no, that was live. That was awesome. Live news reporting on the GonnaGeek.com network. Woohoo!
We're breaking boundaries every day on GonnaGeek.com.
By the way, in the chat, Suncast does say that I knew that was a setup. So, I gave it away because I never, ever give the overlay on the video side of things when I play a video clip. So I got to start doing that because to me, that gave it away. And, but I don't know, maybe Suncast picked up on something else, but thank you very much, Neil, for that. And, SP, you got any, or Chris, you got any final comments before we do go on to Chris's app segment?
Well done, sir.
I am going to order about 100 or 200 Nerf footballs, and so he can stack them around his Nerf center.
I like it. I like it.
You gotta ship it to Canada though, and that's not cheap.
That's true.
Yeah, and it'll take like a year.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and roll into our final segment of the night, which is Chris's Tech Talk / App Talk. I don't know. What's he doing? Let's find out in a moment here.
So this might more accurately be called Chris Eats Crow live on the GonnaGeek podcast. So let me take you back about 2 years ago when Chris and Steven are talking about their cool Android Wear watches they get and like, oh, they're pretty fun, but they're not must-have devices. And I think I said something to the effect of, had I not gotten mine for dirt cheap, I don't think I would have gotten it because it's not really an essential device. Let's fast forward to about a week ago. Chris has got his LG G Watch. He's not even thinking about it. Sees there's a software update, installs it, and then his watch runs like ass. It is incredibly slow. It is a pain in the butt, and I really hope you don't have to bleep that, Steven. And if so, I apologize.
It's fine. It's fine.
So continuing forward, Chris is sitting here, and he's like, okay, it's just a watch. I can live with it. So I'm at work, and all of my calendar invites and things like that are synced to my watch and my phone also, so that I'm bound to be able to know when I've got a meeting come up. And I check my watch all the time, and it's really slow to bring up the screen. It scrolls slowly, and Chris finally gets mad and goes, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's time I need to invest in a new Android Wear watch, a non-first gen Android Wear watch. So what did Chris do? He went and got himself the LG G Watch Urbane, which is a round Android Wear watch, which is one of the current gen of them. And I have to say, I'm eating crow. While I did get a good deal on it, I did spend over $100 because that was the cheapest I could find a good one. And I kind of have to say that I have gotten used to having the Android Wear watch in my life, and I was having a hard time coping with one not working properly. So Google, your trap has worked. You got me suckered in with a cheap one, and I went, no, I don't know if I need this. And then I got used to it, and now I need it in my life. And I have to say, I do like some of the extra features in this one. There's been some cool stuff put in.
Yeah, like what?
So, for instance, this is one of the first ones that actually has its own Wi-Fi card in it. So that,
nice.
For instance, I'm in my basement right now. I left my phone upstairs in the master bedroom, which is on the 3rd floor. This watch is still connected to my phone as long as it is on the Wi-Fi network. Now, I don't
Same
have to
Wi-Fi
have the
network.
I don't have to have them on the same Wi-Fi network either, because you can do that with the Apple Watch right now. If I'm on the same Wi-Fi network with my Apple Watch and my iPhone, it works. As long as my watch is connected to the internet via Wi-Fi, it reaches out to my phone and gets notifications and things like that. So, for instance, I turned off the Bluetooth on my phone and turned off the Wi-Fi on my phone. So I was just on the regular 4G network, and I was still getting notifications on my watch. Yes, it was slightly slower than if I was connected via Bluetooth, but it uses Google Play services and basically pushes them over the internet if you are not actively connected via Bluetooth, which I thought was kind of cool. And it means if you forget your phone from time to time as you're walking around the house and still have your watch on, you'll still get your notifications. You can still respond to text messages and things like that. It is a very cool feature. And I did also find out that there are select Android Wear watches right now that also have speakers on them in addition to the microphone. Supposedly, with the newest version of Android Wear, you will be able to make calls from your watch so long as you are connected to the same network. And like you can see right now, I got a text message from Neil that just showed up on my phone and just came down to my watch. So
that's cool.
It works pretty well. And again, I will say, absolutely not essential technology, but it is a nice to have thing. And when it doesn't work, you realize just how much you've come to rely upon it. This is going to sound terrible. I'm still not 100% sold on smartwatches and stuff like that. I just had a hard time taking it out of my life because I'd come to be dependent on it.
I'll tell you, the Apple Watch does most, not all, but most of the stuff that you just described. And my wife, since Christmas, has become absolutely dependent on it It is the technology for her is so cool because she keeps her phone in her purse like most women do. They don't have pockets or whatever. They keep their phone. So if she's walking around the house or at work or whatever, and a text message comes in or whatever, she's not like a guy and doesn't have it on the desk or whatever in front of her. It comes through on her watch, and she could see the call, whatever, and then she can make calls back and forth because there's a speaker and a microphone in the Apple Watch too. So that has really changed how she's been able to use technology. So I will say from that aspect, Android or Apple doesn't matter. The way the technology is being used, if you can wear a watch, is amazing. And I can't wait to hear what other good stuff that you find out about it, Chris. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that next week or next month or whatever.
And I'm scared right now because it says it has a system update ready to go on it.
Oh,
and
no.
I don't want the same thing to happen when I just bought a new watch. But I have a 30-day return period. So if it makes this one run like ass, I'm just sending it back.
It's funny though, like, because you're right, or you mentioned it, we bought the watches at pretty much the same time. And I go through periods, like right now I'm not wearing it. I go through periods where I just get lazy and I leave it on my nightstand, and then I put it back on and I'm just like, why did I not wear this for the last 2 weeks? Like, I love the damn thing and always having the notifications right there. And it's just a very handy and versatile thing to have. And I bet I'll be in the same thing. I'm not going to update mine because of your experience. I'm just going to ride it out as it is. One day it'll tell me that I can't use it anymore, and then I guess I will update it as a last-ditch effort. But for now, unless I accidentally do it somehow, I'm just going to leave it.
I mean, that's the way to go. Just go with what works for you. I made the mistake of not checking Reddit before I updated it, and then I kind of kicked myself. It was completely self-inflicted. And again, like I said, smartwatches are still cool things looking for their use in life, though.
Well, I mean, it's technology. As long as it can kind of limp along, you can kind of use it like this. I don't know, second generation iPod Touch,
I have one of those plugged into my car stereo.
Okay, so I was just a sidebar here. I was talking with someone the other day who is a big Apple fan I work with, and he's got an Apple Watch and all this. And I was saying, like, that Android and Apple they're both too extreme on updatability. Apple goes and they put out things not long enough, and then they stop offering it, or they put out a really crappy version to encourage people to go up. That's my conspiracy theory. Android does the opposite, where they just push and they push and they push and they push. You need the happy medium where you keep supporting your products, but you only give certain feature updates. And Android is notorious for this, in my experience, where they just push the updates. Like my darn Nexus 7 that I've got here that I use as a video switcher now. It does nothing else well at all. And that's not an exaggeration. I put Facebook on there. It's slow. I put the mail app that I use. It's slow. It's useless. And they needed to not do that. They needed to just strip it down. And if they were going to give me the features, they should have just given me a stripped down version. And I feel like they're both at the extremes on the opposite ends.
Well, my original Motorola Droid was useless by the end of that contract time. And I'm so glad Verizon got the iPhone 4/4S at the time. Then I was able to jump ship up to that. Not that I was jumping ship from Android to iPhone, but iPhone back then was the clear winner between the two. I'm talking about an original Motorola Droid, the one that you had the flip out keyboard, the slide out keyboard and stuff like that. Yeah. That was their first touchscreen, but everybody was, I don't want a full touchscreen. So they had the keyboard added onto it. As long as technology keeps on moving forward, these devices aren't supposed to last forever anyway. So you're going to need to update. You're going to upgrade. Heck, I ran in my basement. I ran into my Palm 3 the other day. I was like, why am I?
Nice.
I think I kept it at the time. Like, it's got addresses and stuff in there. I bet you I can't even power it up. I don't. I need to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think, like, to me, I actually give a bigger pass to the LG G Watch because it wasn't it the second or the third?
It was
Wear?
the first or second Android Wear
Yeah.
device. So it is early gen technology for early adopters, basically.
Exactly. So I actually give it a pass on the shorter lifespan, but it is actually a point that really irritates me on how short these lifespans on these devices are becoming, like tablets and phones and things like that. I think it's unacceptable that they expect you to be forced to upgrade in basically 2 or 3 years. You know, it's one thing to me if it's going to physically fall apart. I actually have more respect for a device wearing out quicker than a device just becoming unusable in the scenario that it did for you. But like I said, I give the LG G Watch a pass because it really was early wear.
Well, you got to think of it in terms of technology. The software behind it is just like hardware. It's a component of the capability. And the software itself, it can fall apart. And if the software falls apart, it doesn't matter if the hardware works or not, and vice versa. So you can't think of it separately anymore. It's one and the same. It's just an extra component.
When you get past some of your early gen hardware and stuff like that, you're starting to see it last for longer than that. The first couple generations of some of these things, they still haven't quite figured out how to optimize that. And part of what went wrong with the original Nexus 7 is the memory they used in it, the solid state storage space was terrible in it, and they had problems with deallocating space, and that's part of the problem that happened with the Nexus 7 because it wasn't fully thought out. Once you get past the first couple generations of these things, you're starting to see them last longer and longer. Like, for instance, you've got people using iPad 2s still that they bought 4 years ago with no problem learning the fact it's not a Retina display, so they can't play select games.
Yeah.
So, and I just stood up for Apple there. You see the same thing with Android stuff. It's just, you have to get past that initial barrier for the first couple generations of things for them to be able to figure out how to optimize them correctly, I think.
Fair point. Well, that is taking us to the end of the show. Before we do wrap up, I want to remind everybody that listen to the start of the show if you didn't really catch it, because we talked about C2E2. It's going to be an awesome event. And I also want to go ahead and just promote GonnaGeek.com. Lots of really great shows on there. Unfortunately, some of these television shows that we podcast on are going on a 1 month hiatus. Really irritating.
Are you talking about the mid-spring hiatus?
Exactly. It was the mid-spring finale this week. That's what it was.
The 2/3 season finale.
Exactly. But no, really great content on there. And if you don't know already, we are not the only ones that go live on Geeks.live. So just go to Geeks.live. We have content running Monday through Thursday right now, and you should definitely check it out. The calendar this week is a little broken, but I'm working on fixing it. So just know, Monday through Thursday evenings, you want to be at Geeks.live. SP, you got anything you want to plug?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Chris and Willie and Anthony and Naki for 200 episodes of All Things Good and Nerdy. Congratulations. You are the elder statesmen on the network. That is phenomenal, week in and week out. There you go. A ding for each 100 episodes. That is phenomenal. And for those of you that don't know about producing a podcast or whatever, that is 200 episodes is basically 4 years if you do it weekly. And it is impossible. Take a look at all the shows. If you're listening to this podcast right now, take a look at all the shows that you've listened to in the past that have stopped or whatever. I'll bet you it was well before 200. It might have even been before 100. Heck, Voices of Defiance, my first podcast, didn't make 50. Of course, they canceled the show. So, that's
it's not
kind of
your
what
fault.
it is. Right. But that, Chris, that is phenomenal work. Congratulations to you and your crew. I'm sorry I wasn't there live. I'll just say that now. You knew why I wasn't there, but
Oh, yeah, it's no problem.
I wanted to call in and I couldn't. And so I'm saying now on GonnaGeek podcast, congratulations. Well done.
Well, thank you, sirs. I do have to say, the thing that makes me most proud on that podcast is, and it's been a little over almost 4 years now we've been doing it. I think there has only been 3 or 4 weeks we have not posted in during that entire run. So we have generally been weekly, except for 3 or 4 episodes during that time frame. And most of that was early on. We're like, we need a holiday break.
Mm-hmm. That's impressive, Chris. And I know I did pop in on the weekend. First off, sorry for breaking your show.
It's tradition on ATGN for technology to break, so you were completely in line with the way things work on that show.
Perfect. But seriously, congratulations on it. The prior podcast that I did made it up to 169. Like SP said, it's hard to see them crack 200. So really, really great job. 200 is a hell of an accomplishment. And you better get on the next 300 so we can celebrate your 500.
Oh, 300. Jeez, man. That's like 5 years.
Setting the bar.
6 years.
But
Great.
I'm going to be an old man by then.
I also have one more thing to plug, if that's okay, Mr. Network Owner, Mr. President, sir.
Why not? You can take JS's slot.
Yeah,
Okay.
There you go.
So congratulations also to the producer of In Defense Of and co-host on Gallifrey Public Radio, Keir and Julie. I know them personally, but congratulations. They got married last weekend. You guys have fun on your honeymoon in New Orleans, and we will welcome you back. But congratulations. That was a long time coming, and everybody on the network applauds, and we can't wait for the party afterwards.
Yes, congrats. And I would like to take one moment here to ask permission from Chris Farrell, this guy right here. Can I give them 3 bells? Is that okay? I don't want
3
to
bells
detract
is
your
perfectly
2.
acceptable.
Okay. All right. So there you go. You guys got 3 bells. You beat the ATGN 200 2 bells. So there you go.
So
And
congratulations, Chris. Yeah, go ahead.
Keir's been posting some photos on Facebook of their adventures in New Orleans. It looks like they're having fun already. And New Orleans is a fun place to go. I've been there before.
It is. So congratulations to both ATGN and Keir and Julie. And it was an exciting weekend in the GonnaGeek family.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Chris, you got anything that you would like to promote? Maybe some engagement plans or something?
Yeah, no. I'll go with my typical thing. Hey, don't forget, we are part of an awesome network of like-minded podcasters. We've got something that's going to tickle your geek fancy, whatever it is. So if you're looking for some new geek podcasts you want to pick up on, head on over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com. We're bound to have something there that's going to be to your taste. And if we don't, submit a podcast. Become part of the family and podcast with us.
Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Where did
I
they
thought
go
you were
to
playing
submit?
me off.
GonnaGeek.com/about.
For sure. So that does take us to the end of episode 135 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. I'm Steven John Drew.
I'm the French-Canadian sensation, but not really.
And I'm a rocket scientist. There's your drink.
I feel underdressed again tonight. Bye.
From everyone here at the GonnaGeek.com podcast, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to podcast@GonnaGeek.com. You can find all of our show history at GonnaGeek.com/official-podcast. And while you're there, why not head over and check out all of the geeky podcasts on the GonnaGeek Network. The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.